Today we are doing lesson 3.3, solving equations using addition and subtraction. Our I can statements for today: I can write simple equations, I can solve equations using addition or subtraction, and I can solve real-life problems. All right, so solving equations using addition and subtraction. If we're looking at two equations, they are equivalent equations if they have the same solutions. In order to keep our equations equivalent, you have to use one of these properties of equity if we're doing addition or subtraction. So the addition property of equity means adding to this same number to each side produces an equivalent equation. So the value of the equation stays the same even though it looks a little different. And then the same is true for subtraction. If you subtract the same number from both sides of the equation, it's going to produce an equivalent equation. So basically what you have to do to one side of the equation, you need to make sure that you do to the other side as well. So they give you an example for each type of equation. So here's in a subtraction one. X minus 1/2 equals 3/8. The opposite of subtraction is addition. So to get rid of that minus 1/2, you're going to add 1/2 to both sides. They don't show you the work of finding a common denominator, but for fraction problems, you absolutely need to do that. So you would have to change this 1/2 into 4/8 by doing times 4 times 4. And then 3/8 plus 4/8 gives you that answer of 7/8. Some people like to do a boom boom when they see a minus sign anytime. So plus negative 1/2, you're getting rid of it with a positive 1/2 same way that you did with subtraction. Over here we have x plus 3 2/10 equals negative 8.5. We're looking over here, it's a plus sign, positive number, we subtract to cancel out. And then over here, when you have a negative and you're subtracting, you want to make sure you're doing your boom booms. Negative plus a negative, same sign, find the sum. Got to line up those decimal points before you add. Okay, so let's try a few problems together. Okay, so for our first one, I have m minus 3 2/3 equals negative 1/3. Okay, so this is subtraction. I'm going to change it with addition. So I'm going to get rid of that minus 3 2/3, or you could think of it as a negative 3 2/3. It's the same thing, by adding a positive 3 2/3 to both sides. Okay. So on this side, those cancel out. 3 2/3 plus negative 3 2/3 equals 0, so I'm left with m. On this side, I have 3 2/3 plus negative 1/3. Different signs, find the difference. I'm going to keep that as a mixed number. I could change it into an improper fraction too if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep it as a mixed number. However, if I'm going to line up my fractions and my place values, the bigger absolute value needs to go on the top. So I'm going to rewrite it over here, 3 2/3 plus negative 1/3. Okay, 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3. 3 minus 0 is 3. So my answer here is 3 1/3. If I wanted to check it, I could put it back into the equation. They didn't say to check. Sometimes they will. Most of the ones we do will say to check. I don't have a lot of space for my check, so I'm just going to kind of talk myself through it. 3 1/3 minus 3 2/3. You're taking away more than what you start with, so you're ending in the negatives, negative 1/3. Yep, that makes sense to me. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. 4 8/10 plus z equals negative 9. Okay, this is a positive number that's being added. We need to subtract 4 8/10 or add a negative 4 8/10. Same thing. To both sides. Now over here I don't have a decimal to line up, so I'm going to add a decimal and a 0. Minus 4 8/10. All right, boom, change to addition, boom, change the sign. That now is a negative plus a negative. Same signs. Find the sum. Okay, 0 plus 8 is 8. Bring down that decimal. 9 plus 4 is 13. It is a negative number because I added two negative numbers. Z equals negative 13 and 8/10. To check it, I would put it back in. 4 and 8/10 plus negative 13 and 8/10 equals a negative 9. All right, for number 3, I have negative 16 and 7/10 equals y minus 35 and 6/10. This is subtraction. I'm going to get rid of that with addition, adding 35 and 6/10. You don't have to do boom boom here, but if you do, you're still getting rid of the negative number by adding a positive. Plus 35.6. Okay, negative 35.6 plus positive 35.6. Those cancel out. They equal 0. I'm left with y on this side. Here's the tricky part of this one. Different signs, find the difference. The one with the greater absolute value has to go on top. So even though I've lined up my decimal points, I can't subtract them in the order that they're in. It's not going to give me a correct answer because I'm going to get into negative positive values and negative net values. Everything's going to get all messed up. So I'm going to go over to the side here. I'm going to rewrite the problem. 35 and 6/10 plus a negative 16 and 7/10. So I've rewritten it with the greater absolute value on the top. Different signs, find the difference. Now I'm ready to subtract. 6 minus 7 takes me to the negatives. I need to borrow from that 5. I'm going to make it a 4. I'm going to make my 6 a 16. 16 minus 7 is 9. Put my decimal here. Okay, so 4 minus 6 takes me to the negatives. I'm going to need to borrow again. That 3 becomes a 2. That 4 becomes a 14. 14 minus 6 is 8. 2 minus 1 is 1. And then I'm going to go back over to my original problem. I'm going to put in my answer, and then I'm going to look at my signs. All right, I had negative 16 and 7/10, a positive 35 and 6/10. More positives, answers positive. That's true for addition and subtraction. Okay, so for our final answer here, I have 18 and 9/10. If I wanted to check it, I could put it back in there. 18 and 9/10 plus a negative 35 and 6/10 does give me 16 and 7/10, negative 16 and 7/10. All right, let's take a look at a word problem. Tom withdrew $55.25 from his checking account. Now his balance is negative $24.75. Write and solve an equation to find the amount of money in Tom's account before he withdrew the money. Okay, so here is my problem. We don't know how much money there was at the beginning, so I'm going to just call that X. That's the amount of money in the beginning. Withdrew means taking out. I can think of that as adding a negative, or I can think of it as subtracting a positive, but it's taking away. So he took away $55.25 from whatever was originally in his bank account. We don't know. And now the amount of money in his bank account is a negative $24.75. Never a good idea to take out more money than what you have. All right, so there's my equation. Now I need to solve it. This is subtraction, or you might have written it as adding a negative. You have to add a positive to cancel out that negative. Okay, so I'm going to add a positive $55.25 on this side. I'm going to add a positive on this side. Okay, so on this side it cancels out, gives me X. Here, different signs, find the difference. I need to subtract. I have to rewrite it so that the one with the greater absolute value goes on top, just like I did over on that problem. I'm going to do it down here on the bottom where I have a little more space. $55.25 plus a negative $24.75. Different signs, find the difference. Okay, 5 minus 5 is 0. 2 minus 7 takes me to the negative, so I've got to borrow. That 5 becomes a 4. The 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 7 is 5. Bring down the decimal. 4 minus 4 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. I look at my original numbers in my problem. I had more positives than negatives, so my answer is positive. Story problems always need a label, so when I take my answer and I put it over here back into the original equation, it's going to be $30.50. But for some reason I'm writing a 7. So let's fix that. $30.50. And if you think about it, hopefully that makes sense. He started with about $30. He took out about $55 and had about negative $25 left. So that makes sense to me that you would start with a number that was smaller than 55 if we're going to end up with a negative $24. Okay, go ahead and try these 3 on your own. Pause the video and take a try at these problems. Okay, let's check our answers. So, solve the equation, check your solution. The book almost always asks you to do this part, which means there's really 2 things we have to do. We have to solve and we have to show a check, both. Okay, so for the first one, p minus 5 equals negative 2. This is subtraction. I'm going to cancel out with addition. I'm adding a positive 5 to both sides. Negative 5 plus positive 5, that's 0. So I'm left on this side with p. All right, negative 2 plus positive 5, different signs, find the difference. So 5 minus 2 is 3. More positives, answer is positive. P equals 3. That's my answer to solving the equation. But now I need to check my solution. We kind of mentally checked on that last page because it didn't tell us we had a check and there wasn't a lot of space to write a check. Here I have much more space to actually write out my work. So that's what I'm going to do because the directions asked me to do it. So to check your solution, you take your number, you put it back into the equation for your variables. So 3 minus 5 equals negative 2. And then you need to actually look and think, does that work? So 3 minus 5, if I do boom, change to addition, boom, change the sign. 3 plus negative 5, different signs, find the difference, is negative 2. Yep, that's a true fact. So I've checked it. It's correct. Okay. Now, depending on your numbers here, you might have to show a little bit more work than that for your check. It just kind of depends. This is a fact I could see without doing extra work. Depending on your numbers with your fractions and decimals, you might have to show a little bit more work than that for your check. All right, let's take a look at number 2. W plus 13 and 2/10 equals 10 and 4/10. Okay, this is addition. I'm going to cancel it out with subtracting. So I'm subtracting 13 and 2/10 from both sides of my equals sign. Okay. So 13 and 2/10 minus 13 and 2/10 is 0, so I'm left with the W. Here I have a number that is being subtracted from one that is smaller than it. I can't do 10 minus 13 without going into the negatives. So I'm going to do boom, boom, and make that plus negative 13 and 2/10. Different signs, I need to find the difference. Greater absolute value has to go on the top. So below my problem here to show my work, I'm going to do negative 13 and 2/10 plus a positive 10 and 4/10. Now I'm ready to do my subtraction. 2 minus 4 takes me into the negative, so I'm going to borrow. From the 3, I'm going to make that a 2. This is going to be a 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. Bring down that decimal point. 2 minus 0 is 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. I had more negatives. My answer is going to be a negative. So W equals negative 2 and 8/10. That's the answer to my equation. Now I need to check it. Negative 2 and 8/10 plus 13 and 2/10 equals 10 and 4/10. Okay, unlike this one where it was just a basic fact I could see really easily, I can't really see that very well on this one. Now my 10 looks like a 16, so I'm going to just neaten it up a little bit. And there we go. Okay. So here I'm going to have to do a little bit more work. I need to show the work for doing 13 2/10 plus negative 2 8/10. Different signs, find the difference. Greater absolute value goes on the top. So I'm going to rewrite it this way. 13 2/10 plus negative 2 8/10. All right, so I got to borrow here. That 3 becomes a 2. 12 minus 8 is 4. Bring down the decimal point. 2 minus 2 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. More positives. Answer is positive. Yep, I got the answer I was looking for. So yes, I've checked it. All right, let's look at this next one with the fractions. X minus 5/6 equals negative 1/6. This is subtraction. I cancel it out with addition. Now on fraction problems, I usually like to write that next, instead of writing it underneath vertically, I like to write it horizontally so I can see my denominators lining up. I'm going to just move that negative and rewrite it in the numerator so it's a little easier to see. Negative 5/6 plus positive 5/6, that equals 0. So that part cancels out. I'm left with X on that side. I've already got a common denominator, which is great. I don't have to worry about that. Different signs, find the difference. 5 minus 1 is 4 over 6. More positive, answer is positive. Fractions should always be in simplest form. 4/6 is not simplest form because both 4 and 6 can be divided by 2 evenly. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So my final answer is X equals 2/3. All right, so we're going to take our answer, we're going to put it back into the original equation to check it. 2/3 minus 5/6 equals negative 1/6. Okay, so I need to do a common denominator. I'm going to do times 2 times 2, 4/6 minus 5/6 equals negative 1/6. Boom, change to addition. Boom, change to sign. 4 plus negative 5 is negative 1. 6, yes, I've checked it. It's correct. All right, next one. A company has a profit of $750 this week. This profit is $900 more than the profit P last week. Which equation can be used to find P? Okay, so for story problems and equations, you have to look for some key words. So that tell us how to set up our problem. When we see the word is for a story problem, that is our equal sign. So this profit is $900. So this profit, they're talking about the 750. 750 is $900 more than. More than in an equation means adding the profit P. More than, less than really mean that that letter is going to come, or the thing that comes after the more than, or the thing that comes after the less than, that's going to be the value that goes first. In addition, it doesn't really matter. In subtraction, it does. All right, so let's take a look. This is the part that's telling me my equation. Let's look at our options down here. Looks like B is going to be our answer. 750 equals 900 plus P, and really more than means I put this part first. P plus 900. So B is the equation that I would use to find the profit from last week. All right. Let's look at this one. A company has a profit of $120.50 today. This profit is $145.25 less than the profit P yesterday. Write and solve an equation that can be used to find P. Go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. Okay, let's check our answer. So I've got the $120.50. I have my equals. 145.25 less than means subtraction, and then the P. So we're going to just write it all out as an equation here. 120.50 equals and this less than, remember, means that this doesn't come first. It means the P comes first. P minus 145.25. All right, so that's my equation. Now I need to solve it. Okay, so I've got subtraction. That means I need to add $145.25. Okay, same sign, find the sum. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. Bring down that decimal. 0 plus 5 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. 1 plus 1 is 2. All right. So $265.75 was the profit from yesterday. And if we go back to the original problem and think, does it make sense? Let's see if it does. So today was $120.50, and that was $145.25 less than yesterday. So yesterday was $265, and if we subtracted this amount from it, we would get the $120.50. They didn't say we have to check it, so I'm not going to write down the check, but it's always a good idea to go back and at least mentally walk through the problem to make sure it makes sense. All right, let's take a look at this story problem. The line graph shows the scoring while you and your friend play a video game. Write and solve an equation to find your score after level 4. So here are the levels, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's level 4. This is the information we need. Okay, my friend, for level 4, the score is -8. My score is more than that by 33 points. So I need to write an equation that shows how I would get my score from my friend's score. Okay, so there are several different ways that we can do this. I'm going to start with my score, X. Okay, so if I'm here and I'm trying to get to my friend's score, I've got to subtract 33 points. If I add 33 points to my score, it's going to go up here. And my friend was lower, so I've got to subtract the 33. So X minus 33 equals my friend's score of -8. Okay. So now I have my equation. Let's go ahead and solve it. This is subtraction. I'm going to add a positive 33 to both sides. Negative 33 plus 33 is 0, so I'm just going to cancel those out, write X equals. Here, different signs, find the difference. I have 2-digit numbers, so I am going to rewrite it. Greater absolute value on the top since I'm subtracting. Okay, 3 minus 8 takes me into the negatives. I'm going to have to borrow here. That's a 2. This is a 13. All right, 13 minus 8 is 5. 2 minus 0 is 2. More positives, answer is positive. Story problem needs a label on this one. My score label is points. Tells me that over here. X equals 25 points. And if I look at where my value is and I kind of follow it over to the side, yeah, that looks like that would be about 25 points. It's about halfway in between 20 and 30. All right, our last one here. It says you have -12 points after level 1. Your score is 27 points less than your friend's score. What is your friend's score? It doesn't say in the directions write and solve an equation, but for this lesson on the story problems, I am going to ask you to write and solve an equation. So let's go ahead and look at some keywords. We'll get it set up and then you can solve it. So we have -12 points, and then that score is, so we need the -12, is equal to 27 points less than your friend's score. And since that's what we're looking for, that's going to be our x. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, write an equation, and solve it. Okay, let's check our answers. So I have negative 12 points. Negative 12 points equals 27 points less than. Remember, less than, that means I'm writing these things in the opposite order that they are in the word problem. X minus 27. Okay, so I've got a subtraction here. I've got to cancel it out with addition. So I'm adding 27. All right, negative 27 plus 27 is 0. Leaves me with x. Negative 12 plus 27, different signs. Find the difference. Greater absolute value has to be written on the top before I do subtraction. Really, that's plus a negative. Okay, 7 minus 2 is 5. 2 minus 1 is 1. More positives, answers positive. 15 needs a label. Points is going to be my label. Okay, let's reread the problem and see if that makes sense. So I had negative 12 points. My score is 27 points less than my friend's score. My friend's score has to be bigger than mine. My friend got 15 points. And yeah, 15 points is 27 points more than mine. My score is 27 points less than my friend. Okay, so that answer makes sense.